Well, I'm gonna get a notification soon.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start off with a good old.
Triggered.
Oh, nope. Donating to Tim and Niko's. Oh,
People Summit.
yeah, People Summit. Wow, Aeolus, you are very quick.
Quick with the fingers.
The benefit of having notification.
Yeah.
Big
Oh,
time.
all right. Bram is on too.
Hooray.
Hi, someone.
Having
A7
notification.
Fisherman. Hey, Jilly. A1329. Troxney's Refuge. Nice. Alright. Let's see.
By the way,
Hi, Campsy.
steamed earlier tonight. That article just set me afire something fierce.
Yeah.
Hey,
Inner-
Else.
That says no.
Or LC. Else. Oh,
Here's my case.
hi, JC. Yeah.
That was
I finally have, with my in-laws coming to visit, I finally have some time to fish tomorrow, so I'm gonna try.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it'll be nice. Solar Sully. All right, hey Dominic.
got somebody. You right? Oh, Brian's here.
Everyone.
Here.
Hi, Brian.
How's it going?
You didn't talk too much last night.
I was just listening mainly.
Same here.
I missed.
You all were having a really good conversation.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, so Guard Gnome, he says I like to push the Justice Dems. So if everyone can go to TYT and support Ro Kana as their champion.
Triggered.
Are you trying to piss people off in this?
Hey, I'm just trying to be supportive.
You mean Obama 2.0?
Yeah, Obama 2.0 or 1.5.
Right now? Are you trying to fuck with me more than that article did?
Triggered.
Oh, buffering stuff. Let's see if I can clear up some headroom.
Please do not pull a Martin Thomas here.
We're live now.
Do not be that
Yeah,
guy.
we're live. Let's see.
So, in the interest of
That should help with any buffering issues, I hope.
No, I don't think we have any buffering issues, do we?
We had some last night, but it could have been YouTube, but I'm just going ahead and minimize and create more space to make sure.
It seemed fine at the time, but then again, I kind of passed out somewhat through most of it.
Okay.
Camera not working, Ellis?
Huh?
Is your camera not working?
No, I'm using my phone. Well, my desktop to work
see.
properly.
Gotcha.
Jilly, no, don't like kinda. Yeah,
like
I was
having-
just kidding, Jilly.
I don't like moseying around my own room while I'm trying to record shit.
All right. Well, hopefully more people join in. I guess we could talk about anything. You're the host, Eric. What do you want to start on?
What should we start on? Well, I want to start off with a funny note. Triggered! Oh, I'm so triggered! Give it to people what they want.
Can you imagine how triggered Jimmy Dore must be with
Jimmy
Washington
Dore.
Post?
triggered last night.
Yeah, I gotta catch up on some of his videos because I thought things would be a lot easier with in-laws coming to help. It just seems a lot more busier.
Yeah, I get a little busy on my part, but
I miss a lot of things, but I happened to catch that and I jumped right in the middle of it, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I, I actually had Dave Weasel, as Tim calls him, block me like immediately.
Oh, yeah.
You have to go and look at it, but he tweeted a picture that was like a still. I still don't know if it was something from my old timeline. I have to go back and dig through. I've had a bad headache today, but anyway, it was a still of Jimmy Dore interviewing Jill Stein, and I'm like, what's your point? Like, you're just trying to sick like the hate percenters on him because it's an image of him with Jill Stein or something. I didn't really get what it meant, so I said, what's your point? And he blocked me. But the funny thing was, I went and dug up that video, and the whole entire video was Jimmy Dore and Jill Stein discussing left-leaning media going after leftists. And the PBS interview where they had sort of censored some of what and chopped up some of what Jill Stein had said about Hillary and TPP. So it was just really funny. Like, I don't know why he picked that. But anyway, I got blocked like immediately by him. But I did some digging on his articles, and they're all attacks on Green Party and just and he was also, I think he worked for Politico and was let go from there, I believe. I may not have the names right, but he's got kind of a history of going on these crazy attacks and then having to walk it back or, resign. He resigned from somewhere. I think it was Politico, but
there's one thing I do have to say. He's triggered!
Yeah, he seems a little bit like reactionary. I don't know.
We should mount counterattacks. I think that's the route to take.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is that we've got the truth on our side. So mounting counterattacks for us is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
Because all we have to do is stick to the truth, and they'll always lose.
Yep.
Right, but I think part of their tactic is to distract. If we spend, or Tim spends all his time, fighting back against that instead of covering stories. And I think he's really good at not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to remember, to focus on the.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do. I mean, the people who aren't big, just there's too many people to shut down. If there's say 100 people just kind of counterattacking the big leagues attacking down.
Right.
And then that just leaves Tim and HA and everyone else who does the news coverage that mainstream media refuses to do.
Right. So they're seeing all these droves of people coming over and listening to other independent media because they're just sick of the bullshit and they want real stories. But I mean, at the same time, I do think we have to fight the corruption in the Democratic Party because I don't see how we're ever going to go up against Trump and win with this resistance if we don't.
Broken Carpenter, hey.
What?
TBC, Broken Carpenter.
Oh, hello. I hear baby. A little bit.
Yeah. So for people who are new or haven't been on After Hours. So After Hours is everyone's show. Anyone and everyone that wants to talk, get on, or even just chat up, they're free to do so. I'll try to host this as long as I can because I think I only have the system powerful enough to actually make it so it's not choppy. But eventually Kelly and Erik and Stevie, they'll probably have something where they can host it and it won't be so bad. But I'm also going to try to get people, at least provide this to people like Tim and Niko have well, Tim has his own, and Niko has a shared account with Erik and Kelly to use
I'm gonna
Ring
be
Central
upgrading
Meeting.
here. I'm going to be upgrading here real soon to a pretty powerful Ryzen-based system, so I'll be able to host as
Okay.
well.
Well,
Yeah,
I would be happy to host if it wasn't for the fact that I do hotel shifts starting at 9 a.m.
yeah, it can be tough. But also, I might be able to automate something. So even if I'm not around, I can just always schedule it to start, and if I'm not around, it just does it automatically. And that might be the easier route to take. And this is going to be just hopefully midterm. Long term is there's going to be something totally different, something that we build, and that way we don't have to pay so much to get something like Ring Central going. Because I mean, just one user account right now is like $45 a month, and now we've got 3 accounts going, so that can get pretty pricey. But
right. Okay.
That's it,
Well,
but-
I volunteered to pitch in on that if you need it.
Yeah, I can too if you need it.
All right. Well, maybe I'll do like a Patreon for after hours and just cap it at the whatever we need, which is at one. I forgot what 3 times 344.99 times with tax times 3. That's enough to cover it. So, all right.
I think we've
that's
all
it.
cut cable, so we can just.
I haven't yet because I need to watch cable sometimes when it's live, so I could DVR it and then I could
Oh, okay.
stream it on my YouTube channel so everyone else can see it.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
You do a good job with that.
And mostly that's just political stuff.
Mhm.
Like if you watch CNN and MSNBC or Fox, whenever they air it, they don't air the whole thing on YouTube. They have snippets.
Yeah.
So it's nice to
true.
have the full thing to show people.
Sound bites.
Yeah.
Fake news.
Yeah. So what? Okay. Let's see. Does anyone on chat have anything? Erik, do you want to keep going on?
Am I? Is my sound on?
Yep, your sound's good.
We can hear you.
Cool.
How are you doing, Broken Carpenter?
Well, tonight I've actually repositioned in my usual like center of power here. So, worst comes to worst, I could kick back, and that this speaks other than sort of if I have problems with my phone again, which my phone started. I think it overheated last night when I had it on a portable or a separate battery that I have for when I'm doing protests and stuff, and it must have overheated somehow because it wasn't getting power right because it eventually just dropped off at some point and was totally dead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I felt kind of bad. We blamed the guy from Hawaii. Oh, well.
No, I felt bad because it was me, and I didn't realize it until I walked around because I got the camera the other way. I walked around and looked at the camera, and it's like fizzling. You can see it fizzling on the screen, and then it like dropped suddenly. So, now we're all
okay.
good tonight. I made
Hopefully
sure
everybody understands we're all new at this. So I'm lying down too, see?
Yes, I did. I noticed. Hey, I think that adapting to your pain or adapting to your needs and learning to do that is an important thing.
That's very true. I wasn't going to come on, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep it real because this is me. This is part of why I've been able to research things like crazy and why I've been so in tune with everything is because I have times where I get stuck like this. I've been on my back all day. So, yeah, it just happens. It's weird. It's not usually this many days in a row, but I thought, whatever. You can see the real me.
Hey, man, trust me. The bandana on my head is just, there ain't much change from last night besides the bandana on my head and my t-shirt. So
I'm right with you.
How's Erik?
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. I was hoping tonight that you chat more because I dig Eric, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's
Oh
see.
man.
What can we
So-
talk about?
Well,
I
there's not really
I-
anything that's happening on the Bill Maher front other than he dropped the N-word, so
I saw
again,
that.
that's not really conversation worthy. That's
Yeah.
kind of
I'd
like
like
par for the
to
course.
I'd like to just broach a subject, and it's sort of it's one of these trigger subjects for everybody.
Oh
Oh
shit!
boy.
And that and that is this. I'm telling you, this Sunday, when Ben from PDX called in, he's right. What he did, he wasn't totally describing what's happening. In Portland this Sunday, they're going to have one of those alt-right free speech rallies, and they've got, you got to understand, they always make it out like it's Antifa radicals versus these Trump supporters. There's a core of people in there that are not like this Trump supporters. There are Trump supporters there, but there's a core of people that are there's like groups like Proud Boys, I guess. There's this guy that it's coming into town, based stick man or something, and he's going to be involved in it. And then on the other side, you have the Antifa people, and this is something that I've always wanted to sort of just be able to get out without having to type
Can
it.
you-
You know what I mean?
Can you
So-
explain more about those? I don't know them.
Well, the alt right groups are sort of this. There's this white power militia,
Right.
Yeah, dark enlightenment folks who want to bring back monarchy.
3%ers, yes, sovereign citizen types. There's like there's a group of people in there that are like that, and then there's also
It's activism. Sorry.
the Antifa people, and you got to understand, like, they're first off, they're using black bloc tactics, which is the black hoods and the bandanas and stuff, and I've never sort of liked that tactic. I understand why they do it, and it's a perfectly reasonable defense against arrest. I think that sort of figuring out an interesting way of getting around it that isn't violent is an interesting way. If they don't have to wrench people out of the cops' hands, that's always a good thing. But there's going to be a conflagration this weekend in Portland because these two groups are going to come together, and they're both.
No, that's never going to end well.
But wait,
No.
which group? So you were saying the black hooded. Wait, that's
Well, the people in black sweatshirts and with red bandanas on and stuff that all look the same. That's a black bloc tactic. What they're doing basically is, it's not necessarily any one group within that group. It's like people that dress all the same so that they're not as easily
Identify.
identifiable.
Oh, okay.
And and the thing about it is, I've known people that go to protest anonymously for very good reasons.
Mhm.
I've been patched up by people that are black bloc, but they're also paramedics.
Okay.
I was walking along all doped out on painkillers to be able to march with these guys, and there was like a sign in the middle of freaking sidewalk in Portland, and I walked right into the side of it with my hand, and I didn't fucking notice. And we get down the street, and there's blood all over my reindeer, and somebody says, "What do you do?" And then, a medic comes running up and starts taping me up. And he looked like, what you call Antifa.
Yep.
So, I mean,
And
they're not, the black bloc is not the same as Antifa. That is another movement within the groups that fight. And you got to understand that one reason I don't punch towards Antifa is because they're on the left. and they understand what state violence against them is. See, the other group always has the advantage of having the state on their side. They're not fighting the state. They're perpetuating a white power kind of structure, and that's okay with the powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from. That's why I don't do a lot of punching towards them. And the other thing is there's a difference between vandalism and violence.
Right.
Violence is done onto human beings. Vandalism is done onto property. And, you know, when you see when vandalism is used as a reason for physical violence, then there's, you know, when physical violence is used in an overly zealous way by the police on somebody that's just a vandal, you know. I mean, I'm for grabbing them and arresting them. You got to understand, I came in, the first time that I had any experience with this was in Seattle and at the WTO, you know. And before then, I hadn't really, you know, noticed it and done much marching, you know. The thing that made me march and become a protester was actually that my union was we were protesting because there was a bad recession during the Bush 1 years. And so like a handful of us got to stand on this one corner when Bush was coming into town, and they had the rest of the people in the free speech zone. And the limousine came by, and George Bush looked out, and I got to give George Bush the finger, and I know he saw me because he was waving at me. So that is, since then, when that happened to me, that gave me this opening of, wow, you know, protest is power. And I believe totally in peaceful protest with no vandalism, because it's counterproductive.
Right.
To a degree.
I can't, you know, like I say, I'm not going to punch left because those people are at least trying to fight in my direction, you know. And that's why if you see me, I'm not defending Antifa as much as not vilifying them any more than the other groups that are there that are portrayed as something they're not necessarily.
That makes me think of what Chris Hedges said. I think I mentioned this another night. My husband's reading or listening to his Wages of Rebellion book. I think is the one where he talks about any successful revolution is when the police end up siding with the people.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I wonder, you know, you're talking about these different groups, like.
Historically, that's true, but now we live in an age where it takes fewer people to control a lot of people because of technology.
Yeah. Right.
So you need to co-opt fewer people, and then we, as the people who resist, have to find target people to go after and try to co-opt them because, you know.
Actually, I was gonna make a point that part of the thing with Antifa that I've kind of noticed, at least in my conversations with anarchists and former members of or observers of larger Antifa movements from a broader historical perspective, has been the sort of co-option by more mainstream liberals as a pretext and an excuse to create the image of a resistance against Trump, and rather than any actual tangible efforts to resist and stamp down actual counter protests against fascism.
Exactly. We see that with these marches. You know, I mean, what are the marches accomplishing? Really, nothing.
Right. I mean, part of hold on, let me get a video, because there was a video a while back made by Bad Mouse on the subject to Sargon.
So Garden Gnome. Okay, you're not you don't have a video, huh?
Well, I have a strip over it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd like to do things
Oh.
while I'm
I have a
chatting, and I
Band-Aid.
don't live in an area where I can get away with what Broken Carpenter is doing.
Okay, well, I have a Band-Aid
No,
on
see?
mine, but I moved after I watched the Snowden movie. I put a Band-Aid on it, but I
That's
moved it.
I thought about changing the color of this strip once in a while too, because it kind of looks cool on the screen. Like it looks like Hollywood Square style.
It kind of
It's just-
it kind of
it's
reminds
just
me of
funny,
Hal
but-
of 2001.
Yeah, every once in a while
under-
I'll put my hand over it to make it flash, just for the hell of it.
Me, I use this on my camera.
Okay.
I
It's just kind of-
understand. I understand the want for anonymity. I mean, I met a lot of people like that, and and that was one of the reasons too. I wanted
You're
to
getting
make sure
choppy, TBC.
that. What's that?
You're getting choppy when you talk.
Oh,
I think
Yeah, better.
because it happens when
Yes.
you move, man. It might be like a short in your wire or something. You might just need to get a new headset.
all right. Well, give me a minute, and I'll tell you what. I will reconnect in. That's what I'll
That
do.
sounds all right
It
now.
sounds good.
All right. Well, actually, you know what I could do?
Well,
I
a
could
little
just do that.
choppy.
Yeah, it's just when you move over, I think.
Yeah, stop moving, Broken Carpenter.
Don't move. Get comfortable.
Quit smoking grass, man.
So I just think
Well,
it's funny. It seems like almost every night we've had the faceless voice, male voice, that has a lot of really great things to say, but it's always the person with no picture. It's just funny.
Well, you can see what I look like by going to my Twitter page if you're really curious.
It's okay. It really doesn't matter. It's great. It's just kind of funny.
Well,
It's
it
my friend.
It's the NSA, man. Me and what was Snipe? What the hell was his name? We're the NSA. I'm just gonna tell you
Snowden.
straight up.
My name is Tad, and I started going by Broken Carpenter just because when I started protesting, everybody had names like Spider and crap, and I wanted to be part of that sort of. I just figured I don't mind if people know who I am. I just figure I'm gonna have a nickname, and if I'm gonna have a nickname, I'm gonna pick it.
Yeah.
Hi,
I don't know,
Stevie. Can you say something so we can see if we can hear you? Stevie, can you see something?
Oh yeah. Geez.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
All right.
I swear I need to start on this like 2 hours earlier. I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, actually, Evan, is there any way to change mine on here just to my Twitter to Kelly's words? I mean, it
You
doesn't
just
really
right
matter.
click on your name, and you
Yeah.
can do rename.
Okay. I'll try to do that. Okay. Right, I'll do that.
All right, well, let's take bets on how long Jimmy Dore lasts at TYT.
Hmm.
Do you think he's in for the long haul?
I
I think that's a possibility.
No, this is
Well,
why
I think he's in, but I think he's going to probably be one of those deviating voices. Because what I've noticed is that with all these networks that try to build a large audience, they always have like one or two voices that are sort of outside the mainstream opinion of the network. You have that one girl at Fox News who's supposed to be like the token liberal. You have Joe Scarborough, ostensibly for MSNBC. It's not really the case anymore now.
Now that they're a unit.
Yeah, CNN. Well, CNN is just all over the place, so that doesn't really count.
The Clinton News Network.
I agree. Like, that's an excellent point. It's a bit of theater, You have these dissenting voices or whatever. The question really is how long will Jimmy play that game?
Yeah.
I
If he needs to
worry.
play it, that means he's been compromised
Yeah.
because he's not dumb.
I don't
He's a
necessarily.
performer. He knows it's what they're doing.
Right, but I don't. But it doesn't necessarily have to be completely conscious. There's a degree to which we don't really accept that this is a game. until we're forced to come to terms with that. Like for the longest time, I was a huge Obama supporter, even up till 2016. And then it just over the course of that year, as I began to learn more about what had been going on under the Obama presidency, and I was forced to really critically examine it, I was like, oh shit, this wasn't actually that cool after all.
So here's two problems with Jimmy Dore and his situation with TYT. Is his YouTube channel is part of TYT. If you go into his channel page and click on videos, you'll see TYT there, not the TYT comedy. You won't see the Jimmy Dore show. So if he leaves, that channel is no longer his. All the subscribers aren't his. This is the intellectual property of TYT. And the second part is where is he going to go? He has to become just truly independent, rebuild his subscription base, and that could lower his amount of followers, and it's just a big change. I think if he can get bigger with Patreon, maybe that might actually work. And
he would have to rebuild his brand, but I think he could rebuild his brand. Yeah. I think he has enough of a following to do it. It would cost money and take effort. Look at what Dave Rubin did, for example. And I'm not a Dave Rubin fan, but he has kind of moved on, and he's getting his own guests and whatever. And I think Jimmy probably has better connections than Dave Rubin.
That may be all well and true, but I also, because I do have family in LA, I'm kind of well aware that trying to live there is a bitch to try and just be able to afford rent. So I don't necessarily wholly blame him if he's like, do I really want to risk the possibility of losing my heating bill because I have a pissing match with Jank?
Well, then you've been compromised, but except you've been compromised out of fear rather than greed.
But the thing is too, though, Jimmy does
not necessarily
very regular comedy shows, and from my understanding, those always sell out well in advance.
Right.
He does pretty well on his comedy alone.
Yeah, he does. And I think him being older, I think he's just kind of, unlike Jordan, somebody that's really trying to be up and coming. I think he could do on his own. I worry a little bit that maybe, I don't know if he wants to be associated with as much with all the, we're getting labeled as alt-left, which I hate, which is crap. But, I kind of wonder, I'm sure he's in a tricky position is all I'm saying. Like, I think he'll stay true to himself. It's just, it's a weird position to be in, I'm sure,
No, that I can agree on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Graham, you're going to say something?
I think he's just kind of hanging in there and trying to,
make the best.
I don't know. If you watch, the aggressive progressives, he just played that clip where Jank was going off about, how they lied to get us into war and stuff. And so, I feel like he's still calling him out, on a friend's side. He's like, hey, look how you used to be. Look how different you are. Because if you listen just to what he says, he's talking about him. He's just not saying his name. He's calling them out word for word, exactly what they're doing, telling the establishment line. He's just not saying, Jank, you are. So I think he's still trying to walk that line. So, I'm not, completely saying that, that's cool, but, I think he's trying to do the best while he's in there.
I agree.
I think if we're going to get him out, we're going to have to, have a base of subscribers to go to. You get, Tim and HA and all these people, to pull their subscribers together, and then maybe, we could pull somebody like Jimmy in.
Yeah, I've seen him do that, exactly what you're saying. He's trying to send them a message, but they're not listening.
No.
Yeah, they're not. No, they make fun of him all the time and say, poo-poo on him because he hasn't, he's not as educated, or he didn't go to enough of a fancy school for him. I heard Michael Schur say that to him one day. Well, you're not educated. I was like, oh my God. Just.
But Michael
Schur
is, Yeah, but Michael sure is like the token establishment hack.
Well, that's just
Exactly.
more of that elitist crap that people are sick of.
Yeah, he's a privileged elitist.
Yeah.
Yeah, privilege.
Well, I'll say it
I feel
like
like these
it
people
is.
kind of got high on their
Privilege,
own
it's
morals,
probably
Like they
Michael
just
Shore.
sit there every day and do this, but they don't. So they don't like. I guess they're just like so used to like defending themselves. Like now everybody's a troll. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Eric.
They've always been that way. Any critique thrown at them was labeled, an attack by a troll.
Yeah, I just get so heated about this because I've been thinking about it a lot because where I followed them for so long, and then they were just such a letdown. They have all that power where I'm like, just talk about this or just why don't waste it. That's really a gift that their subscribers are giving them, a platform, and they're not doing their job.
They're squandering it.
Yeah.
Well, I think was it Tim? Somebody said, or maybe it was a caller that started the conversation about how.
All right, Joanne, we got another one. Sorry.
Oh, just over the last couple of weeks or the last month, what all has happened with all the attacks on Tim, on HA, that clearly they are noticing that they're losing viewers and that people are leaving DYT and saying, what is this bullshit? And going elsewhere, or they wouldn't even be bothering with it.
And like this Pac-Man thing, like he goes on there and says,
Kirkman.
have at it, Hoss. Oh, hard bastard tore him a new one on that one.
Oh, I love that guy.
Exactly. Jank's phrase. And he says it, before he said, he was worried about, the money loss, and, everybody is. But now he thinks he's going to buddy up and kiss ass to Jank, and he's going to add him onto the show or something. I guarantee you that's what that was.
No one should kiss Chank's ass anyway.
Oh God, no.
No, he's he's so triggered though. Triggered. He's triggered all the time. Every time he gets so triggered by everything. He gets triggered by the truth. And you know what? I really don't like Jank at all. And plus, he's going to keep continuously losing his credibility. And you know what? That's going to be all on him.
It also doesn't. It also doesn't help that he's like the worst political philosopher of all time.
I mean, he might
some
have
of those ideas are just crazy.
Because I get cancer every time he tries to explain socialism in his own words.
Yeah,
it's so cringeworthy.
He just doesn't understand.
A lot of TYT people in the chat right now, KMC and No More Donations. Like, I'm not. I'd like to know what they have to say on this because, No More Donations called in, but I'd like to know what they have to say because I'm seeing more and more TYT people show up.
Or former.
Well, TYT, the way I followed it for a long time because in a way I viewed it as like the dawn of the age of television or something, and I got to watch it emerge. Like there was this new age of like internet television that was going on, and I was like, this is pretty fascinating. So I started following them and watching them, and I've followed TYT since 2008.
Yeah.
So, but I never gave them any money. Around like 2011 or 12 or something, they pulled this scam where they rented this museum to pitch this low-end American Express card. And I was like, this totally conflicts with like everything they talk about.
I remember that.
And Jake was up there. He was like licking this PR person's boot, like softballing him questions like, how can this card help the population? I mean, they pitched it as this populist fucking thing, and it wasn't. It was a sales pitch. It was a docu ad.
It's just Bill Maher part 2 to me. Like,
no, that's Seth Meyers.
Oh,
Shady Seth Meyers. Shady Seth. Shady Seth. I like to call him Shady Seth. He looks very, very shady. So
he's basically family-friendly Bill Maher. Just the same snobbish elitist attitude, just without saying, without calling himself a house nigger on live television.
I still call him Shady Seth. Honestly, I like the name, but you know what?
It works. It works because he's shady as well.
Shady Seth. You know what I could learn from Trump's campaign? It's just like the names where he comes up with Crooked Hillary. But me, I come up with my own names because that's like something, because I listened to both Trump and Bernie, but I wasn't a Trump supporter, but I listened to the guy, what he had to say. But I didn't want to listen to Hillary Clinton, what she had to say. It was just blah, blah, blah. PC culture, SJW, family friendly.
The worst part. The worst part is just like for me, I consider myself a pretty staunch SJW, but like watching Hillary Clinton is such a drudgery for me because what it represents is like the most shallow and vapid representation of everything that I've ever attempted to stand for, and
you just might as well just call them the Hillary Justice Warriors. Like take out the S, just put in the H. Put in Hillary Justice
it sucks. It sucks because I get triggered by it because I seriously get triggered by it because the problem I have worked my ass day in day out to try and have conversations with people about just trying to talk to try and refer to other people and who don't share your experiences with a bare modicum of decency, and every time it always comes back to the people like Hillary Clinton, who take the concepts of identity politics and social justice and twist them on their head in order to gain a political advantage, not to elevate the conversation for people who are actually disadvantaged by the society that we live in, but in order to elevate themselves. And it makes it difficult for me to have the conversations necessary to be able to encourage people to start making steps in the right direction. So to me, it's all this to say, fuck Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it's weaponized social justice is what it is.
Yeah, it's not even social justice.
Taking it and it's not using it for good. It's just using it to score a point.
Exactly.
And I feel like there's a difference between like there was a time when I was in on a job site, we're eating lunch. And this dude starts talking about how he had to smack this old lady last night. And I don't know if he thought like I'd just sit there and just like, oh, cool, But I ripped into him, just told him he's a little fucking, he's just a little man. And basically, read him the riot act and just tore him a new asshole. But the problem is, now you got idiots running around, using these little microaggression, safe space kind of things. And all of these things have been twisted to a point where it makes true social justice look silly in a way that it very much isn't.
Well, you're right.
Brian was. I want to hear more from Brian. I think his brother worked with.
Yeah. Yeah, he worked on her campaign in Nevada, and the interesting thing is, and I tried pointing this out to him several times. The thing that upset me the most about Hillary is that every time she agreed with us as progressive, it was only when it was politically expedient. If she felt she could gain something politically by doing it, that's when she would agree with us. Aside from that, she never agreed with us. Bernie was in favor of things that were way ahead of their time in terms of being progressive. He was in favor of gay marriage back in the 80s. I mean, that was unheard of. Right.
What does your brother say about that?
He won't talk to me about that. He won't talk to me about it.
I will say this, with the sorry, I will say this. I mean, honestly, it feels like the mainstream media did hijack the social justice warrior movement and hijacked it and really, really demoralized it into really tainting it. That's honestly how I really, truly feel about it.
And that's a fair perspective. And for me, when I look at it, because here's the thing. Like, you brought up the conversation earlier this week about Anita Sarkeesian. I'm personally of the opinion that she's kind of a mediocre game critic at best. But no, honestly, I do think she's mediocre. But the problem but I don't necessarily think that the questions she raises are necessarily bad to be raised. I think that there's a place in a meaningful position for a cultural conversation about social justice and representation and how that affects our attitude towards issues pertaining to minorities and those in disadvantaged statuses in society. However, that all is to say that those cultural issues need to be met with practical, real life issues that need to be brought to the forefront. To me, social justice isn't just about solving cultural problems only or solving practical problems only. You have to do both because the two are nestled and intertwined with one another. Our attitudes reflect the politics that we are willing to ascribe to and willing to settle with. And unless you are willing to tackle both, you're not going to actually make any lasting progress on that issue.
That's a good point. And to that point is,
I agree.
We can take a look at our society and see how the violence in the society as a whole contributes to our military-industrial complex. So if we want to get a hold of that, we have to first take a good look at ourselves and realize, okay, what are we doing as a society that's helping to prop this up in the first place?
Right.
Yep.
Part of it is too, you got to understand, it was sort of a perfect storm of things that were also usable by the powers that be to squelch actual social justice.
True.
You know, when a few butthurt comedians that haven't learned, comedy is just like Kathy Griffin today, everything else. Comedy is an ever-changing thing because it's subjective, objective, objective. It's objective, and so people will see it. And humor is something that, you know, if a joke isn't funny and it's punching down, it tends to fall flat. And now, you know, and then it gets people upset. And there are, you know, on college campuses, young people, just like any kind of young people, they get overly zealous about what they know or what they've learned. Right. And so, you know, their hearts are in the right places, but they're what they're looking at as what's the biggest problems in the world aren't the real problems in the world, kind of thing.
Well, I look at it in a different way. I don't think of it as them not looking at the real problem, because it is a real problem. The issue is more that it's a microcosm of a much larger problem that extends far and beyond just the joke itself. This is why I get frustrated with people like Bill Maher, who saddle around bitching and complaining about how their audiences are too PC for them to be able to perform properly. It's like, no, motherfucker, you just refuse to grow up.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's what I was speaking about. It's language, and language is a subjective or an objective thing. It changes with time. And a good comedian, Jimmy Dore is very good at this.
Oh, he's
Carlin was fantastic at it.
Carlin's a legend.
Using language, you know, he used language like he would do a comedy routine like poetry, and a person that has that sort of language skill is much better than a Bill Maher who only has sort of snideness and an attitude to go to drive it home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Well, Bill Maher is even worse to me because he rattles this in this sort of pseudo intellectualism that
Yeah.
A phony.
because he thinks he's a phony. That's my biggest problem with him. Like
And a pussy too.
all those. It's all of the above. I mean, not only is he a giant freaking coward, he also tries to posit himself as the greatest intellectual the left has ever seen since Noam Chomsky, which is ironic because I'm pretty certain Noam Chomsky would despise him to perpetuity.
Oh,
Yeah,
Snooki is
like
back.
he gets
Awesome.
he Bill Maher is a trigger, like triggered. Like he gets triggered when when he can't speak what's actually the right thing. He gets so triggered. He's like, oh, I could have thought of that. Trigger.
What pisses me off the most about Bill Maher is the guy's a hypocrite.
Oh, big time.
Oh no.
Just this last year, in his list of new rules, which he does, I think, at like the start of every show, he said that what the left needed to do was it needed to come up with its own version of the Tea Party. Well, guess what, Bill? That's kind of what we're trying to do, and you're telling us to fuck off. What sense does that make?
Well, the left version of the Tea Party would be
Is one that he can control.
He's an establishment conformist cheerleader. That's what he is. He is a conformist.
way back in the day. Cenk was like, someday I think we should have a left version of Fox News. There was a quote out of some article that he did or something where he straight up said that. And that's kind of what he's created now. I mean,
kind of what they've become.
These TYT narratives are just bizarre, and their methods remind me of the Tea Party. It's just that's what
they lack the coordination and tact.
Yeah, they're all disorganized. I mean, the whole thing's a shit show, but
Like, I'll give the Tea Party some credit. I don't like to credit them with very much. Due to it largely being an AstroTurf. But
well, to the point about language, I mean, language itself has been weaponized, and it's been intentionally weaponized against us.
Language has always been weaponized to some degree or another. So it's like that's not to me.
But with communications technology and the consolidation of control of it, we're entering into this new effect, and we have to be aware of it. People dividing themselves up by these labels and etc. I mean, Tim and a lot of people have talked about this before, and we just have to be aware of it.
Anymore. Instead of like redefining the words, they just left them undefined to where anybody can hear a certain word and you can get 10 different definitions from it. And it keeps us from talking to each other and communicating. Where we can, get together and actually fight these people. Because, you say Democrat, and I think, those are the corrupt Democrats. Those are the neoliberals. You know how it is.
Yeah. West Virginia Democrats.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't get particularly bothered by that, but then again, I have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and general grammar. So I just suck that stuff up like a vacuum cleaner. Just like, yes, give me all your definitions. But now that I think about it, taking myself out of that, I can understand why that'd be very frustrating for other people who don't necessarily have that attitude towards word salad.
Well, you have to be careful not to be just an open sponge for whatever people decide to feed you is the question. I mean, observe everything, but internalize only so much.
And it's been words and phrasing and things like that have, like you were saying, has been around since advertising in the 50s, 60s. When they started,
go even further back.
Yes. I mean, we can go back to just offering to, everybody's barn was old paint. And it was old red paint, and it had the mail pouch tobacco sign on the side of the barn. You know, because they would do a deal. They do a deal. What they do is they paint their barn for free with cheap paint, and then but they got to paint a big mail pouch sign across the side of their barn, and it's like, and they used them like along the roads, and you know, used to be when you weren't running down an interstate full of billboards and crap. You're just riding down basically state highways and stuff. They were all around, and so yes, it's been sort of images and language has been used against us since the start of time, since they were able to reproduce print, or even since language started.
The start of what we're seeing started with a guy named Le Bon. He's a Frenchman. He wrote a book called The Crowd, and it talked about crowd psychology. And off of that was the work that people like Edward Bernays, some of you guys might be familiar with him. His work was based off of his uncle's, Freud's work, and the work of Le Bon, and it just went on with it. Now we have like people who have just been studied by the thousands and thousands to see how they react to certain things, and it's become a science. It gets around most people's rational capabilities, goes right to their subconscious, and they fall into these traps.
And this feeds right into what I was talking about earlier with the Antifa and the alt-right, or whatever we're going to call them. And that is when you have a mass, the only thing that, the only difference between a march and a mob is just one spark. And the thing about using black bloc tactics that I have never bought into, one of the reasons I don't like it, is because the cops will infiltrate it. It happened in Seattle. It happens all over, I mean, if it's they try to infiltrate a lot, and they've been caught trying to sort of look different. But the black bloc is the best way, because they can, encourage you to do some stupid thing that you would never do, but they're standing there and they're sort of getting you to do it, but they're not going to do it. And so it's yes, it's all, I'm sure on the other side there are people there doing the same thing,
Yep. And it's kind of,
I think that they're really trying to hit is time, because now where we have to spend so much time saying, well, when I say Democrat, I mean this, I don't mean these people, and so it's like we have to take longer to explain it. We have to explain it each time, and it's an attack on our communications. I mean, it's like if you were to take down somebody's telephone lines, or cut their wires, it's the same thing. That it's just a weapon.
I agree.
I've been looking into this because, honestly, we need to know the weapons that they use against us. Because you hear Hillary talk, she talks about weaponized information, weaponized technology. That's what they do. Everything they look at how can we make it a weapon? How can we turn this thing that is good and use it for evil? And we have to be very, very careful of these people doing stuff like that.
Yeah, they become.
I agree 100%. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, me?
I'm confused. Whoever,
go ahead.
Okay. They pretty much just completely weaponize everything that they do. Yep. They completely do that, and it's really unfortunate because it kind of like brainwashes the narrative and never see the real perspective of things.
And now it feels like even if you question things, or if you even try to think of a plan to take back our own government, it's like it almost feels like they're going to come after us for treason. It's like, well, we're trying to figure out how to plan a better government, and then it's like commies over there. That's all it is. You're working for the Russians. It's like, no, we're working for a better future. What are you doing? I think these people are more treasonous and more terrorists, honestly, than anything that we have to fight overseas.
They pretty much weaponize. Sorry, they pretty much weaponize the mainstream media. They throw out these labels. They marginalize everybody. I mean, the mainstream media has become the biggest marginalizing tool that actually is oppressive and suppresses. Honestly, this is why people should cut the TVs.
Right, like the Seth Rich story. I mean, if you even, I mean, I mentioned this before, I think, but if you just even point out the facts that, you know, they haven't found anybody yet, they didn't steal anything. I mean, it's instant, like, I think I mentioned I'm in this progressive chat room, and it's like they're so scared of being labeled like tinfoil hat sounding in the least bit. And I thought, wow, this is really effective mainstream media, you know, way to shut it down. Like if you can't even just look at that case, and I'm not even talking about orchestrating a whole big story about what really happened. I'm just saying, mentioning, that's kind of fishy.
Yep.
Gets you like, all of a sudden you're in Alex Jones territory. And it's very interesting how people are what's the word?
Self-monitoring.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, but I like to when I used to troll a lot more on Facebook with my friends and family, I always say, hey, I'd rather be a conspiracy theorist, and I am conspiracy theorist because conspiracy theorist is not bad. I'd rather be a conspiracy theorist, believe in conspiracy theories, and it's not believe, sorry. I would rather agree with conspiracy theories that I think are very well investigated than I would agree with propaganda. So at least with well investigated conspiracy theories, there's a lot of research that went into it.
Right.
When you research into propaganda, it's pretty simple that you know it's just not true. And what conspiracy theories, what you're trying to do is to see if it is true, right? Or because you can't really debunk a conspiracy theory. You can find things wrong with it on certain avenues where it's going, but it's based off of investigation. With propaganda, it's not based on investigation.
But if you look at what's happening, like for example in that chat room, it's almost like, you know, sorry, let's bring it around to a parenting thing, but it's almost like what I hear my daughter say about what goes on socially in middle school. If you veer too far outside what everyone else is saying or what everyone else is doing, you can be ostracized. And it's almost like, you know, grown adults are still doing that instead of looking at things objectively. They're more concerned about being ostracized from a group, seen as odd or whatever, you know.
What is that, Stevie?
I was going to say that's what Hard Bastard was saying in one of his videos. That it's the I think he called it an apostate type situation where it's like, well, you've went against the narrative, and now you're shunned from the community. You know, we don't talk to you anymore. You know, we're not friends with those kinds of people. And and so yeah, you keep your. I mean, I did it. I don't know how many years I kept my mouth shut about so many things around here because you know you don't want to go be the person that goes against the current. But you know, it's at that point now where you can't just keep your head down. You got to actually speak up about this stuff.
Exactly. We do need to speak up because if we're not, then they're going to keep continuously trying to silence everybody.
Right.
I think some of us, I know I'm this way sometimes to my own detriment. Like, I think it's from, I went to 16 schools from kindergarten through 12th, so I never tried to make a whole lot of effort to fit in anywhere. We just moved. So it's almost like a curse because like I literally like just don't care about that at all. Like to the point like I think sometimes I don't know, it can be bad for my kids because like I don't want to have their friends' moms. They're like, oh my God, what is this lady talking about? But I don't care about that. And so I think some of us just have that in us. Like we don't care about following the herd. But you have to be the kind of person that doesn't get upset about being attacked and doesn't care about fitting in with the group mentality. And that's not a lot of people, I think. or it's not the majority.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's kind of hard, and like I've noticed, like especially in places like here, where like you don't really have much, like in these communities, like basically like what they have is each other, and so if you are cast out like from that, society, you don't have anything left to fall back on. Yeah, it's pretty sad, but what I've noticed just from talking about this stuff, so many more people have said, you know what, I feel that way too. I didn't know that there were other people out there. I've met so many people now that I just thought I was like the only person that cared about trees in West Virginia, or clean water. And there's so many people out there like us, but of course they're not going to tell us that they're out there. We got to go find them.
Right. And the more people that I guess make it okay then to talk about, then people that are less comfortable with it will do so,
Well, let's test out Joanne.
Like, with gays and coming out, the more people that did it, the easier it got.
Joanne, right. Can you say something? We can't hear you, Joanne. Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I've been kind of quiet for a couple days, and I don't know.
No, it's fine. It's great. That's what this is for, right? It's kind of like therapy / we can actually talk about things that, we can't talk with anyone else because people near us probably don't want to talk about this stuff.
Oh, exactly.
You were talking about the herds and everything. I like to think that I've sort of lived through my life, and I've always been able to sort of blend with any herd. You know what I mean? It's like in my little town, I was a stoner football player, which was sort of backwards, and then I became a hippie, union carpenter. Like the first thing the BA said was, get a haircut, which, I chopped about 2 inches off the bottom of my hair and went to work, and then like every dude on the job site, get your haircut, hippie, I say, start paying my bills, pops, and then
a damn likable person.
But it's, you go through life and you meet people, and if you can get past like the things like you could talk about politics without talking about politics. You could talk about healthcare. You could talk about how the bartender ain't making enough money. You can point things out, walk a person forward towards it's sort of a Platonic, Socratic sort of way of getting I don't know if you've ever read Plato. Basically, Socrates sits around, asks questions, and everybody says, yes, Socrates, at the end of it, It's always like there's a great point, and there's a metaphor or something in the middle, and you understand what's happening, and then everybody in the room in the dialogue says, oh, but of course, Socrates, and so it was always, I dug reading that. But.
Well, yeah, if you have an approach like Cornel West, that's friendly. I mean, I don't know, he's pretty left, but he, when we saw him in person and he spoke on the stage at this event, he talked about some Republican friend of his, and he's able to really reach across that. He's just a nice guy, and he means well, and he approaches people. I think that's what was so bad about Bill Maher going off on him, because it was like, no, you don't do that to Cornel West.
Oh, he screwed with the wrong guy when he screwed with Cornel West.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a nice person. He's a good person.
Oh, who fucked with Cornel West now?
That was the most ridiculous thing I've seen. Are you talking about the Bill Maher? That's like an ant lecturing a giant. That pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you step on my anthill?
I mean, he's just an entertainer, man. He's some comedian. He's lecturing Dr. Cornel West on the show and trying to use the audience to bully him.
No, the worst part is
disgusting.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, Yeah, rule number one: never start a try and argue philosophy with an actual philosophy professor if you haven't actually done any work in philosophy yourself.
Right.
Yes.
But Bill Maher won't learn a damn lesson. He's part of the establishment shells, and plus he's going to wreck his own credibility.
Considering he's
wrecking him, he's going to keep continuously wrecking his own credibility, and he'll become a fucking nobody.
I tell you, I suspect that Bill Maher has put himself in an awkward position in the fact that he refuses to ally himself with the SJW crowd, and yet he still finds himself shitting on the progressives who frankly could care less about the more cultural aspects of the social justice movement. So, I mean, considering right now he's currently found himself in hot water because he used the phrase "house nigger" on his own show.
Well, when we saw, I want to say this about Cornel West and Bill Maher. When we saw Cornel West, this was April 8th.
Yeah.
It was in an event, pretty big audience, but the audience was a very, progressive audience, and there were no cheers for Bill Maher. I can't remember what was brought up, but the whole audience was like moaning. It was just audible, ugh.
I remember hearing, is that a laugh track? Because I remember hearing cheering from the audience.
Oh, no, I'm talking about in person. So we saw him at an event in Michigan.
Oh, I see.
Got to meet him, which was really cool. And anyway, I can't remember what was being discussed, but everyone kind of like Bill Maher, and he said, well, he's been a good friend and invited me on the show, and he was kind of sticking up for him, kind of making excuses for him, he's nice. Yeah.
Well, that just goes to show the strength of Cornel West's character, man.
Exactly.
That guy's like an ultra egalitarian.
Exactly.
I mean,
but this was before
everyone we're talking to, Bill Maher or some bum on the street,
Mm-hmm. But this was before he chewed him out, just a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah,
that's the thing about him is I actually saw him with Nate Germ and Lisa Mojica in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about him is he uses his notoriety, and he is a street professor. He does his actual. He has done the work of a true intellectual, but then he takes it into the streets and speaks in a language that everybody can understand, and is like you're saying, he truly is. He walks life with a good purpose, and it shows.
Yep.
And it's just genuine.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, you don't. There isn't any bullshit in there. I mean, there's jokes, there's kid, and there's laughing, but there's no bullshit out of him.
Right.
I mean, when it comes down to brass tacks, he'll tell you, that it's
right.
And if there's a point that what I really appreciate about him is the maturity behind him, because even when he's in a crowd that may not agree with him, he doesn't complain about the fact that he's not getting a good reception. He doesn't complain that you just don't understand. He goes, okay, maybe I can phrase it this way. Do you see that? Does this make more sense this way? Okay, but Bill Maher doesn't have that ability. Bill Maher, because I don't think Bill Maher actually knows what the fuck he's talking about. I actually am
exactly
convinced
I agree.
He pretends like he understands what the fuck he's talking about, but the reality is that he doesn't have the intellectual capacity
I might have to disagree with that. I think Bill Maher is smart, he couldn't have gotten to where he is
the ability
without
to
that.
I think
But-
he's intellectually lazy. I think his lifestyle has made him lazy.
Well, he knows
Because he graduated from a good school and he is bright. You know, he's a bright guy.
Yeah,
he understands show
But
business.
he's become lazy.
No.
the
He,
Marlon
let me.
Wayans
Can
of
I speak, please?
intellectual.
Can I speak, please?
Sorry.
He's lazy. He's smart. Y'all have to give him that because he couldn't have been what he was is without that. The thing is, he understands show business and what makes money and what makes people even. Just think about it. We're talking about him right now, and we don't like what he's been saying or doing. But guess what? We're talking about him.
Exactly.
He understands show business. He understands how to have certain types of talking points where everyone's gonna be animated about. So I think that's what he does. It's show business. That's how he makes a lot of money, and it stays in show business, right?
Well, I think
Exactly.
he has a huge base of knowledge, but it's almost like it stopped about 10 years ago and didn't let anything new come in. So he is really knowledgeable about certain things, but there's a lot of it's outdated, being very out of touch with the Bernie movement, and I think.
And that was the thing, when you said Mar understands show business. That was the thing about that was the worst. That was a setup question by Cornel West, or to Cornel West. That was all set up with cutaways and jokes and this and that, and then he jumps into his shit, and he doesn't have the thing about it is he doesn't have he isn't in the weight class to be able to pull that shit. It's a cheap shot, and it should get you busted down properly.
And that's why I think he's not as bright as he thinks he is. Yeah, he may be smart, and he may be able to speak, but it's kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn says, just because you are able to think and you are able to speak doesn't denote that you're actually intelligent.
He's gotten lazy recently.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Oh, big time.
He's late. He's the Marlon. You know what he is? He's the Marlon Wayans of American intellectualism.
I think
it's a man with immense who does have talent, but refuses to capitalize on it. And each iteration he produces, he ends up getting lazier and lazier with his material.
But I agree.
Yeah, well, yeah, and say what you will about John Oliver, but John Oliver, his everything he does is much sharper, harder hitting, and you know what I mean? I mean, he has.
Oh yeah, John Oliver.
He uses much more ability and shows it in those 20-minute segments than Mar does the whole show. You know what I mean? Mar tries to sit there and have these discussions with people and get to mediate them, but he isn't really adding to it. He's just cheering aside.
That's because John Oliver is capable of something Bill Maher at this point is probably never going to be able to, and that is research.
Bill Maher stopped listening, and Bill Maher stopped having better guests on. Like, where's Salman Rushdie been? One of the last things I watched was Thomas Frank desperately trying to talk about his book Listen Liberal, and Bill Maher and Rob Reiner sat there and didn't listen liberal. And nothing's getting in anymore, I feel like. So I used to watch that show a lot, not just for him, but to listen to the panel and listen to what, I would learn a lot, like different authors and people that were on. Anymore, it's just it's another echo chamber. He doesn't let them talk, and he just is rude,
Yep.
I mean, he should use. Honestly, if he had any kind of credibility whatsoever,
he had it before.
Yeah, he had it before, but he doesn't anymore. But if he had any kind of credibility left in him whatsoever, he would exit the mainstream media and actually go up against it.
Well, as
Yeah,
John said, that's probably enough about Bill Maher. He's not worth
well, I just want to add one more thing
Okay,
because
yeah.
that sort of wraps this up, and that is what he is he wants to be sort of for social justice, and yet sort of just shit on social justice at the same time. He wants to be able to do jokes like you were saying, like using the N-word or something, and like it's cool because it's Bill Maher and everybody knows he's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that he doesn't have it. He doesn't have it anymore because everybody's watched him crap on every brown country in the world that we want to bomb. He says yes.
So, well, I mean, he's basically South Park without any of the traits that made South Park work.
Hey guys,
Yes.
South Park is libertarian now.
Hey guys, we
big time.
We triggered
Sorry.
Rob from Bob TV with the mention of Trump, with the mention of Bill Maher.
Oh, okay.
Bob TV is on. Oh shit. We're sorry, Bob. We didn't
Well,
mean
that's
to.
okay. What does he have to say? Let's see.
Triggered.
He's at work, so he can't really say much. But I was just
cool.
reading the chat. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. We're sorry, Bob. We didn't mean to anger you.
Well, I think I saw someone over here said something about he's for, it's like rich liberals. And I think that's true. There's that huge divide, and that's where Hillary was too. It's rich liberals that want to give lip service to social
It's washing. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's
I think that Eben's point is probably the most relevant. He's not ideologically motivated. He's motivated by cash and career. So there's no point in really discussing his ideology.
No. Mm-mm.
Well, and that I think that sort of takes us into another subject that would be good to just go forward with, and that is the idea of there is sort of a class. There's a class of mostly white people that can give $1 million to a PAC, and who have an oversized sort of effect on our politics, or at least they have an oversized microphone to be able to get out what they're saying. And it cuts out everybody from here in Yakima to Stevie to you guys that are down south in California. It's that sort of there's a classism and the idea of, well, if you got to understand, it makes sense that this we have to get so many white women on this board, and it's not like looking at it as rather than paying the workers $15 an hour. The important thing is we get so and so on the board of Walmart or Bank of America or something, because that's leaning in and going forward, and that is true that breaking barriers is cool, but breaking barriers does nothing if you're closing them up. It's sort of setting a barrier up right behind you as you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The fuck you got mine attitude.
Yep, absolutely. And I have a lot to say on this. I don't want to take over.
Go ahead. That's why I brought it up as a new subject.
Okay. So I just turned 46. So during the whole campaign, I was right there on that cutoff. You kept hearing everybody 45 and under was for Bernie and over was for Hillary. And there are other factors. I think a huge factor is the housing bubble, because let's face it, most Americans, any wealth you have is in your home, right? Well, I see it right where I live here. Anybody just a little bit older than I am, they bought their house prior to the housing bubble, and they have a whole lot more equity in their home. They're better off financially. It's a different world, and they also, for instance, my husband works in IT, and that's another sector where he got in just right before the door just almost hit him in the ass. And anybody coming up just a little bit younger than us, had a really hard time. I mean, he just barely got in, barely got in as a contractor at Cisco for 4 years, worked his ass off there. We had like really shitty insurance. We scraped and scraped and scraped. But, really, we're right on that cusp. And when I try to talk to people older and a little and better off than we are, they have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no idea of like the world where Stevie lives, where my husband is from, Northwest Georgia, that I lived for 4 years. But they have no idea. They have no clue. I've mentioned this before. My liberal attorney ex-friend, who really honestly was more of an acquaintance. So like Tim said, don't end friendships over politics. Well, sometimes maybe they need to end. But she was just so rude and obnoxious, and like no Trump people that were for Bernie would have ever voted Trump. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You live in this well-to-do bubble. You've never struggled. You have no idea. You don't even, like, I just drove to Michigan and back several times the past couple months. And I drive through West Virginia and parts of Ohio that are really poor. And these people, they never even see it. They fly over it. They have no idea. I try to mention that. Like, you have no clue. You don't know anybody that lives there. You don't know what they go through. You have no family there. You have no idea. And she says, oh, I had to drive through there one time. It was just really scary.
But they pass by it all the time without noticing it.
Why do you think that?
It's not like it's in one location in the country. It's everywhere in the country. It's just that they don't see it because their circle of friends, the places they go, everything, it costs more to buy into that club. And we're still all doing the the free version with ads, and they have bought the upgrade to the premium level.
Well, I've honestly had my foot in both worlds my whole life, which is a very weird place to be. I think I've mentioned this before too, but both of my parents grew up in one of the wealthiest places in this country, and in Michigan, and through many remarriages, divorces, and all that, kind of were downwardly mobile. But I've lived my whole life that way, like in extremes, one foot in one world, one in the other. And but there is so much more misunderstanding in the other direction, like from people that have more, their misunderstanding of what people that have less go through.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm sure that Stevie, probably everybody has a lot to add to that, but that's kind of I feel like is a unique perspective I have, because, you just don't often, I don't know anybody else other than my sister that has experienced this. So.
Well, there's a lot of people that grew up poor and ended up making it to middle class. And I think you see,
but not the other way around always, and then back.
Yeah. And one economic professor that I like watching, and he's been on Jimmy Dore a couple of times, is why am I forgetting his name? Mark Blythe. Yes.
Yes, he's great.
And he's the same way. He came up from a poor family background, etc. And now he's doing a lot of outreach stuff. I mean, it's not political, but it's economic. But he kind of paints the narrative of how Trump won, because he stood for something while Hillary Clinton really didn't.
Right. But even so, there are some things. Well, I feel like like I said, there's a lot more misunderstanding in that direction. There are some things that I feel, coming from a bit of privileged background myself, that I feel like other people don't understand, or misperceptions of people with more, I guess. So it's just a really weird place to be. So
it's hard to understand when you've never, like for me, I've always been poor, so it's like I can't even like comprehend what it's like for people like the Koch brothers. Like how do they function? Like what do they even do? You know, like how could I can't even guess what their motivations could be, because their life is so different from mine. There's no way they can understand people like us.
Mm-mm.
And like you were talking about equity in your house and things. There's another side to that. As far as like the equity I have in my house, like was sweat equity. Yeah, I built a barn and put up fencing and had goats chew off like 5 acres of blackberries on a hill, on a slope. And when we moved in, it was a single wide trailer. I'd looked and looked and looked for something we could afford, and then finally found this thing, had a beautiful view. Everything was great about it. I'd still love to be there and have the goats and everything, but anyhow, so we had a lot of sweat equity and years into paying our mortgages and remortgaging when things got lower, and sort of taking advantage where we could. But then being on fixed income, suddenly everything still goes up in price, but you're sort of on this fixed income that doesn't keep up with how things go up in price.
Yep.
So it that makes it tough for older people, especially. Especially older people that have like a ton of equity in their house, and they're trying to keep their house and not do a second mortgage and everything.
Right.
Because once they have them over the barrel, they'll screw people. So
Well, you see those ads for reverse mortgage. It's just sad. It's like, no, people have to resort to that. It's just
do not do that. My
No.
father did that. My
But
father
some
did
people
that.
might not have a choice.
But take out a second mortgage, whatever. There's ways of there was a, I don't know, that it's sort of it's more stealing from you, because they're giving you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
It's like payday loans, man. It's just another
Mhm.
grade. It's another grade of payday loan, and that's
Yeah.
why they're on CNN and Fox News and whatever. It's so that people go, oh, when I get my catheters, I've got to think about stopping by the bank for my, to do this reverse mortgage crap.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's you don't ever get ahead in that world. You can't get ahead.
I know when I was down there living with my grandma, like she was, it's when she found out she had cancer. I was down there taking care of her. She got a letter from Social Security saying that they were going to cut her money, and she said, "Well, it's a good thing I'm dying, because I can't afford it." I mean, like, that's sad. I mean, that's how it is now.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like for me, I've always lived in a sort of a low/middle class environment. My father's a mathematician. My mother is a housewife. Both came from pretty privileged backgrounds. My grandfather on my father's side was an engineer. The grandmother was a social worker. For my mom, she grew up in a relatively affluent family, former rice merchants and land owners. So my parents often complained about, like how poor they were living. But I kept looking around at my friends, and I couldn't help but notice over time that some of them were living poorer lives than we were. I mean, we were struggling with mortgages and medical expenses, but there were some people who couldn't afford any of that.
But see, in a lot of ways, it's harder to go in that direction. If you're used to having and then you go to not, it's, I mean, it's harder to adjust.
I think I always wanted to see this reality show of having rich people, wealthy people who've never been poor, to
Yes.
start from scratch and see where they can go in, say, maybe a year's time.
That's so
Right.
funny. I had this idea. I wanted to drop my banker uncle, who I keep using him as an example, so I hope he never watches this because I love him dearly. But he's a good person. He really is, but he just doesn't get it. And I want to say, okay, take you and drop you in the middle of Alabama somewhere. You have no money. You don't get to say you have a degree. You got nothing. Let's see what you can do. Just to prove it to him. But I know he believes he would just come out on top. I don't know. Maybe he would. I mean, there is such a thing as drive, and some people have more of that than others. But I don't see that as more so in rich people and less so in poor. I think it's pretty evenly, actually. Maybe more lazy people have more. But anyway, I think that would be great. There were a couple of congressmen or a couple of people that I think went and tried to go live on welfare for like 30 days or something. Does anybody remember hearing?
Yeah, it's kind of like a stunt they do every once in a while with food stamps.
Yeah, but we're talking about like the real deal. Like who's that guy? Morgan Spurlock. He had that show 30 Days. I think he and his girlfriend kind of tried to do that on one of his episodes, and they went and lived somewhere in a very poor town and started with nothing, and it was kind of like that. But yeah,
how did that work out?
What was that Mel Brooks movie? Anybody ever see that Mel Brooks movie where he was a rich tycoon and then somehow he lost his company? This is a pretty old movie, and he wound up homeless, actually living in homeless shelters, and he actually got back.
Not Trading Places.
Trading Places is the only one that I can remember. That's similar to
that movie.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Tim doesn't have some little, sound bites from that.
It was funny. You were talking about before, though. I tell you, when I got out of service in 1970, I was a truck driver making $5 an hour. I bought 3 houses for $11,000 for all 3. I had a boat. I had a pickup truck. My wife didn't work. She stayed home with the kids. And we had plenty of money, and it was just a whole different society. Then when Reagan got in, now Reaganomics came in, that just cut the bottom out. I mean, it was downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, for some people, or for most people.
Well, there became a professionalized class.
Right.
And they're the ones that get to speak on the TV and things and talk about us. And see, the professional class, like you were talking about earlier, Cal, it doesn't, the professional class, what it is they don't understand like how a thing doesn't, they buy regularly, they don't even think about it and how much it costs.
Right.
Just one thing.
Yep.
And so to them, they don't notice it because they don't really, it's a different realization of how much things cost. They speak in bigger numbers. It's like turning a dial, an adjustment dial on a piece of equipment to, from, reading in tenths to reading in hundredths, and they don't have it.
Oh, by the way, Dominic Campsey said the movie is Lost in America.
Oh, I know what it was? Yeah.
Okay. There was a thing on NPR not too long ago. It was something about scarcity, like thinking in terms of scarcity, like kind of what poverty does to the brain. That people that grow up poor, you end up where I'm trying to remember exactly how it was worded. I'll have to pull up the article, but it's like you just think about like what's right in front of you, maybe not what's like best long term, because you're trained that you're just like immediately you got to think of how to survive right now. and just
You'll
how
take
that
the $20 today instead of the $100 tomorrow.
exactly. So it's this it's this perpetuating thing where, and my husband said, I listened to that and I think I have that because he grew up poor, and he does things a lot of times that way, and I'm like, what are you doing? But there's such psychology to how you grow up and how that affects you, how you view yourself and your abilities and your stress, depression, anxiety, all those things.
And it's also, you got to understand, it is a purposeful system of a neighborhood or a town they'll have your minimum wage job that you're gonna bust your ass out at, and then your other minimum wage part-time job, and then you go cash your check at the payday lender place,
Mm-hmm.
or the check cashing place. They take a chunk of your money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to a little market that overcharges you for crap produce and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, by the time you get home, you've been sort of taxed by a capitalist system. And they do it, they locate things in areas, and they locate people in areas on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The strategies that I had when I was poor, and I had videos that kind of talked about it. So coming to Boston, I only had like $500, no family, no friends, no one I could rely on. I asked actually friends for money, any money they could spare. I didn't get a dime. I mean, they're kind of poor too. Some of them are well off, but they couldn't help me. So you're used to being on your own. You don't have a fallback for other people to help you. That's what being really being poor is about. And so the strategy I had is finally get a job. I mean, go through the library, just send out so many resumes. I only have a high school diploma. I don't have a college degree, and I just know how the system works. So it's just kind of find a job, do a lot of good things, and then after a while, find another job and get a slight pay raise. Because if you stay at a company for 10 years, you're getting, and your basic, if you even get a raise at all, it's gonna be 3%. But now when you switch to a new company, say you made $26 an hour, you could say, okay, I've been at that for you learn a couple of things that's kind of indispensable. Your next pay, you could probably go for a $32 an hour job. And the thing is, the problem with when I lived in Seattle, Washington, when I worked at Microsoft, they had contractors that you work with. You don't work directly with Microsoft, but they had 3 vendors that work with Microsoft. And so what you do is, say I was making $16 an hour. So my brother told me, hey, go to another vendor and say, hey, someone at Microsoft wants to hire me, but this vendor is only paying me $16 an hour. But I'll go with you if you can give me like $18 an hour. And so they go, yeah, okay, we'll pay you $18 an hour. And so I told the other vendor saying, this vendor is going to actually pay me a little bit higher. So they go, okay, you know what? We're going to give you $20 an hour if you work for us. So you kind of have to find out a lot of the way the system works, talk to a lot of people that work at the place, which vendor they're going through, if they're going through contracting and things like that. And every time,
do you think that's changed now? I mean, I think
there's a lot more contracting agencies now more than ever. And
do you still think that doing that would still work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked as a union carpenter, so I kind of dig exactly what you're saying, because I had to get job to job. Sometimes I'd get on a job and I'd be working myself out of a job. You know what I mean? We're building a building. When we get to the top, they lay off, and that's it. And so in actuality, I sort of kept the hippie look, or at least I have lots of deep-seated issues. other about that. But there's a reason why I have it, and there's a reason why I never got rid of it. If
I love it. Keep it.
Well, if it ever stopped me from feeding my family, I would have, but it was like sandbagging the boss. I would come in or gaslight them because, the guy that would hire me, he hires me, he's going, oh, the fucking hippie, and then because I was good at what I did, it was, oh, wow. Why wasn't that hippie working for somebody else, and so I get to work on the next job, and that's the way it worked. It wasn't, they could see me and see I was working better than other people. And that, it gave me an edge. And that's what I think, like Yvonne's talking, everybody's got to look for an edge now. Everybody's got to do this, one contractor against another, or, trying to find one job that's going to pay you 25 cents more because, in actuality, they aren't gonna like keep you around for a quarter, if they ain't willing to keep you around for a quarter, they ain't willing, you know what I mean.
Hey, I need to hit the bed, guys. I'm pretty exhausted from lack of sleep.
Yeah, might be a good
same
thing.
here. I gotta call it early.
I think I kind of have to call it early. Do you guys want to do a weekend show? Maybe do something on
I'd
Sunday.
be up for that.
Or Sunday might not be good, but maybe Saturday night.
Just let me know when.
Good for me.
Yeah.
Let's take over Saturday Night Live. Let's take down the establishment.
Yeah, let's do it.
Everybody think up stupid jokes.
Or do you guys want to?
Would you like my contact info so that you guys can reach me?
Just go to Twitter. Sign up for Twitter. Find us. I'm actually Tequila Mockingbird. It's a little weird. I tapped it in for you. Oh. Yeah.
Hey, Eben, I want to say one other thing about what you were talking about real quick, about your strategies. And see, like my grandfather and my uncle would say, well, it's basically like social Darwinism. Like, see, you were smart enough to figure it out. And then, but still, maybe there are people that aren't quite as savvy at doing that. Should they be starving and homeless and without health care? Do you see what I mean?
Yep. Well, definitely not. But
yeah, but that's what they would say. Oh, well, you rose to the top because you deserve to. It's social Darwinism at work.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, it was also circumstance. I was single. It was just me. I didn't have a wife, 2 kids, so it was a little more easier for me to do it than if I was to do it now.
Right.
And also, some people are just so downtrodden. Like one of my best friends, he doesn't think he can do anything,
right,
or anything good or anything useful. But man, this guy can draw. He can come up with very good visuals, and he could work pretty good as a graphics designer or something like that. But he's been so like the work he's been doing, he doesn't have he says he doesn't have an education. I go, hey, I have the same education as you, but you've got talent. You gotta work on your talent, and that's what makes you special. So
I think that's where your maybe poverty and depression and anxiety. When you're a kid,
that's a big thing. I think
that in
because you do need a support structure. If you can't believe in yourself, you need friends and family that believe in you, and that's how you get out of it.
Yeah, and there was a woman. I guess maybe Stevie left. I should save it for another night.
Yep.
There's a woman that wrote a book about being poor and how actually it was the opposite about being poor. That people help you out. If your car breaks down, you've got somebody down the road that will take you to work, and that once you anyway, that's a bigger topic. So
we'll figure out. We'll host sometime tomorrow night or Saturday night.
Why not a little bit earlier so that everybody isn't like staying up so late.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll try that. We'll do like normal hours.
I always thought after hours. It sounds a little kinky. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Hey, if we do it at what 5 o'clock my time, which is 8 o'clock East Coast, Is that a good? Well, that's about the time we started the night. So if we did it 7 o'clock,
It can be tough
I
for
don't
me. I've got like family time until maybe around.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what time. Yeah, I forgot. You put them to
Probably
bed, then
the
you got the
earliest I
time.
could
That's
do
right.
would be 10 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, 10
Probably.
or 9 or 10 might be good. We'll play around with it. We'll see what people. We'll do like a Twitter thing and see what people think. What time?
Yeah, I'll see your tweet. Tweet at me, and then I'll know, and I'll be here.
Okay. All right.
Same here. All right.
night,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Have
Good
a good
night.
one.
Have a
Have
good
a wonderful
night.
night.
Bye.
Night, guys.
Thank you, everyone in chat.
Oh, I got my shirt on.
I saw that. I love
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Yes, I saw yours.
I'll wear
I
I'll
need to
wear
get
one of my
some.
shirts tomorrow.
I don't have one yet. Maybe I'll get one in Chicago.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.